Hey Wade, how's it going? So let's take a look at texturing this in Substance. So I've created a very simple kind of version of the arena, and essentially what I've done is I've laid out the UVs um, just like so. So I've got four tiles. Let me just move this tile up. Just make sure that that's in there. Maybe this one I'll just scale down. Scale down just a bit. There we go. Making sure that nothing's touching the border. But you see I've got my sand pit here, and then we've got the stadium. Right, so I got the stadium wall and the surrounding bits, and then the bleachers. So I've got the bleachers here. So I've got just enough room for everything. Now for the bleachers, basically what I did is I divided it up. Added a little bit of, just as a box, got the right angles. Once I figured out how many divisions I need around here, the pivot's at origin. And initially, when I just kind of go through the process in case you ever do this again. So what I did is I went to create or edit, duplicate special option box, and I started off by using an instance for this. So again, just on the geometry, I had an instance turned on. Figured out how many copies I needed around here approximately. Again, starting off with a box. So I figured out, it's probably, I'll need about 24 in total, divided by 360. So that gives me a rotation of 15 degrees. And because I already have a starting one, I don't need a full 24, I just need 23. Because again, we have this initial start point. So when I click apply. Now, the reason why I started off with an instance is that, I wanted to make sure that everything kind of aligned properly. And I can see when I deleted the stuff we don't need, which is a good idea to do, like all the stuff you don't need takes up, UV space, or it actually takes up resources at rendering time. So if you can get rid of it, then we just get rid of it. But it looks like I've got a bit of a gap here. So what I would do is I would just go in and just select that outer edge, or maybe this guy actually. So let me just select this guy, maybe expand that, so shift period, or the greater than less than. There we go. And because it's an instance, I can just move the one side, and everything through the entire thing will move with that. So I can just get it perfect just in the one little section here with the instance. So something like that. Okay. And then once that's done, it's just a matter of going in, selecting all the geo, and then combining it. So it becomes one piece, which, let's see if this works for me. If it doesn't, we could just mirror everything as a copy instead. I mean, duplicate everything as a copy. But it should work. There we go. So now we got one piece. So just remember to delete history. So delete history, all this stuff, retrans, center pivot, all those things. Give it a name. We'll call it stands geo, and we can delete all this stuff that doesn't do anything. And then we've got sand geo. Cool. All right. Another idea might be to just create a bit of a proxy of where your detail might be, right? So might be a good idea to put in just a little bit of a floating cube, nothing too close to the ground. Otherwise, when you're baking out you're doing your initial bake in Substance Painter, you'll get some occluded shadows. But just something that says, my action is going to be taking place over here. So that way we can focus more detail and not worry so much about the other stuff that we don't see. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of extra time moving things around. So maybe this cube needs to be around here. So that's where the action is going to take place. Maybe about there. Cool. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select these guys. Oh, and one other thing. Just make sure that the UV, everything has its own UDOM, right? So this would be a number 5 because I have 4 for the stadium already. So we got 1 for the stadium. So all of the different, remember we duplicated this, but everything's kind of aligned. So I just have to texture one thing. It'll just automatically texture everything. And then we got the sand here. And then we've got that little cube I created. So we just got to make sure it has its own UDOM. Otherwise, we're going to get some nastiness when it bakes out stuff. Cool. So let's do this. I'm going to save. Save scene as. And let's go 3. And we're going to export this as an FBX. So grab these guys, maybe throw on a material as well. So let me create a new material. Redshift materials can't be read in Substance, so just make sure you're using the Maya default materials. Doesn't matter what kind. Lambert is fine. I'll call it Stadium. MTL, it's a material. And because even though we have multiple pieces of geometry, it's going to be labeled based off of our material. So that's cool. Export selection. And we'll just export it here. We'll call it Stadium Geo Low. Stadium Low. And an FBX. There we are. So let's go over to Substance. And let's load this in and see what happens. So I'll just pause it while it's loading up, and then once it's ready to go, I'll unpause. All right. So first thing we're going to do is create a new scene, give it a resolution, make sure that the normal map format is set to OpenGL. Either work with Redshift, but with DirectX, you will have to invert your green channel in the normal map mode, which is a bit inconvenient. So let's just go OpenGL. And we're going to go select our file. So let's see here, non-resource images, Stadium Low. And all this stuff is good. Okay. We're going to do our bake first, right? So we're going to do our texture bake. We're going to maybe add in ambient occlusion, maybe displacement, and go down here to bake mesh maps. So let's go larger. We're going to use the low res as the high res. We can turn off ID. We don't have any object IDs. And everything else is good. So bake selected textures. And we'll just give it a second to do its thing. What I'll do is I'll just pause it while it's doing this, even though it's kind of neat to watch, but let me just pause this. Cool. All right, so that's done. It only took a few minutes, but you know, no sense in waiting. So just so you know that, you know, it does look like everything has its own unique thing, but you know, this is just a repeat of the same thing over and over again. But you would never notice it really too much. Almost not notice it. Okay, so next thing I want to do is start working on our different layers here. So one is the sand. We've got the bleachers and then the seats. So maybe I'll start with the bleachers. So let's go in and I'm just going to navigate over to Substance Source. Now there is a Substance Source button here. It opens it up, but to be honest, it just freezes on me, and it's actually frozen right now. It's become really, really unusable and slow. I don't know what they're doing with the integration here, but it just does not work. So I feel like it actually just crashed my Substance by clicking on that. I hope you're not following exactly along, otherwise maybe yours might have frozen as well. So what I'm going to do is go over to Substance Source, just through a web browser. Substance Source. There it is. And here it are. Log in. So use your Sheridan email. You get unlimited access to all of the different shaders, which you will need. They're awesome. So log in. And what we need to do is start searching for things that we're going to be using. So, for example, for the stadium, I don't know if you want to go concrete or sand blocks or something like that. I'm going to go sand block. Oh, so I got some good sand in here. Wet sand rocks, desert sand dunes. So I own it already. I'll just re-download them. And Gulf bunker sand. Sure, I'm just going to do a combination of a whole bunch of things here. Packed rocky sand pathway. Sure, we could probably use a bit of that. Alright, this is opening designer, but that's okay. I just want to design, download these things. Trampled sand, sure. This one might be interesting. Rubble sand. Let's see what else we got. Winseps, you know, the more the better. If you can just download them, then it's good. You can see I own a bunch of these already. Maybe, I don't know if we need to have any bedrock kind of poking through. Mud wall, it's not really a mud wall, but that could be interesting. Alright, so next thing I want to do is there some kind of concrete wall, or a wall of some kind. So let me just type in wall. Yeah, so nothing like that. It doesn't look right. Moldy wall, that looks kind of cool. It's not very alien, like it's a bit more. That's kind of cool. Alright, I feel like I should just pause it while I'm deliberating which walls I want to grab. It's too many choices. This is kind of a neat looking thing for maybe the bleachers, the bottom part of the bleachers. Translucent concrete, that looks pretty awesome. But, you know, maybe not so much for the wall part of things. I'm going to grab this guy. Blistered paint concrete wall. This could be interesting. You could always click on the icon. It'll show you kind of what this is going to look like. Yeah, so this looks kind of cool actually, especially if we can get maybe the color around certain spots. And then there's also a it'll also load into the 3D model. You can play with the sliders interactively in here, which is kind of cool. You can also change the shape of this if you wanted to. So, you know, maybe instead of a plane, maybe a sphere. That way I can see light on there. We can do things like roughness variation and play with the colors. I don't know if we can actually change the thickness of that stripe, so I don't know if the stripe's really. So maybe not. Maybe not this guy. But I think we're getting closer to something here. Coastline eroded stone wall coating. That's kind of cool. Grab this guy. That's a bit more futuristic. Obviously, I own that one. That's a good one. Perforated metal wall panels. Yeah, I don't really want that. Oh, this is kind of neat. Temple wall, but no, it's probably not. Alright, I feel like this is taking way too long. I mean, this is kind of a cool thing here. Alright, I'm just grabbing a couple things here. This is probably closer to what we want. Dirty concrete wall. Cement covered brick wall, maybe. Yeah, that's kind of a cool one. Alright, so we got a couple options that I think we're probably good to continue moving on. Alright, but as you can see, there's like a gazillion things to choose from, and you have access to everything. I'd suggest even just downloading all of it, and that way, you know, when the school's over, you'll have your own library of substance materials to work with. Maybe that could be a part-time project. Okay, so anyway, I think we got enough to continue going. So what I'm going to do is load those in. So I'm going to click on this button right here. Oh, you know what? That substance source thing is still going. I'm going to have to, you know, I'm going to unfortunately have to relaunch that again, which is so irritating. So let me just pause this, and I'll get back to where we were, and then I'll start the recording again. All right, we're back. So it only took a few minutes. I just pushed a couple quick buttons, and we're good. So I'm going to go into loading all those guys in. So all those new custom materials. So they're under my downloads. Here they are right here. I'm just going to grab them all. And let me just move this recording button over. And open. So you got this big list. So the easiest way to load this all in is just do a big drag over everything. You have to define what you're bringing in. So bring in a base material. There we go. I think I got it all. And you also want to define where it's going. So probably the best place to put it is into the project file. And we're going to import. And there they all are right there that we're going to work with. So I'll start with just the dirty concrete for the stadium. And normally I could spend hours just kind of finessing things, but I'll just kind of do a once over. I'll give you an idea. So what we can do is we can just drag and drop it onto our panels. So F1, 2, and 3 will allow us to go into a 3D, 2D split, so we can actually see our UDIMs there. We could also do a 1, 2, just 3D, and then F3, so F1, split, F2, 3D mode, and F3 is 2D mode. So that way I can see what's happening over my tiles over here if I need to. So these things like the dirty concrete here, you can just drag and drop it right onto the object, and it'll just automatically get added to the to your layer list. There you go. But I did add it to the wrong thing. Stupid me. All right, let me do this again. So let me just drag it onto the right thing this time. There we go. Now, if you're finding it's really kind of slow to work with, one thing you could do is change your overall size here. So I might want to go down to 2K. When you spit it out, you could always, or when you even when you're working, you could always switch between these options. 2K will just be a lot faster. So instead of showing us a 4K resolution, it's going to be showing us a slightly depreciated version, but still we could always export it, as the high res when we want to. Now it looks like when I did that, it applied it to the entire object. So that's a bit irritating, probably because I only have the one material. But that's fine. That's fine. So what I would do then is, I don't know what happened here. We lost our settings over here for some reason. Let me just reset my viewport. I'm having some issues the last couple days with things. Reset UI. Yeah, still, I don't know what's going on there. I'm going to save. I'm going to reopen this. So file, save scene as, and no, this is digital creature, systems, student help, sand stadium, and source images. We'll call it sand stadium. All right. I'm going to pause, and I'll start back up in a second. I think part of the problem is that I'm running low on space on my C drive. I got to do some major cleanup. So if we did, have a unique material for each one of these objects, then, it'd be a little bit easier to divide things up, but that's fine. It's actually easier to apply it as one material with our UDIMs at the end. So, either's okay. But what I want to do, though, is I wanted to just kind of create this material so it's only affecting this section right here. So under the material, I'm just going to right click on it, and I'm going to create a black mask. That way it's not on anything. And we're going to go down to this mode right here. So that's 4 on the keyboard. And what this does is it allows us to apply the texture just by kind of clicking on some faces. Now the better thing to do is use this option. What this does, it just lets you click on the shell, and it'll just automatically associate it with that tile essentially. So there we go. Let me just make sure. There we go. Got it. Cool. And what about this guy? There we are. So white will give you, will add it, and then black will subtract it. There we are. Cool. All right, so that looks pretty good. The bleachers, I might go more metal for that. So let me see here. Do I have my individual? Yep, they're all associated with my project. That's good. So this is the concrete. So I can go between my mask and back into my material properties. So I probably want to scale it down. It's too big of a texture. So once I'm on my mask there, now it is something that does look like it tiles a little bit. So I just have to be careful with how it repeats. So you know what? Maybe this isn't the best. Another thing I probably want to turn on are my height. There we go. So that way we can get. That actually looks pretty good. I'm gonna keep it. But I might layer in a bit of a brick pattern there. And another thing, if we want to see the height as a displacement, we can go over here into the triangle, the pyramid, and we can turn on our height here. Right, so that's going to start displacing the existing polys, which, you know, I only have like 10 polys across, so it's not going to look so good. So if I want to get more nuanced displacement, we can start increasing the subdivision here. And that's going to start giving me a little bit more variation. Maybe I want to go edge length though instead of uniform. And let's just start going this way. So 0.01, that's still even too high. Can I go even lower than that? 0.001. No, it's not going to let me. So maybe it's. Oh, there we go. Yeah, 0.001. So there's a little bit of it, but not like a ton of it. I'll just go maybe a little bit higher, like 0.003. Cool. So this looks particularly good on the front of the wall. You know, up here, maybe it's not looking so good up here though. We could maybe even go with a slightly different texture up on this section, which maybe I might want to do. I think so. Or we just turn down the so under the material. So I'm under the material. If we go down through the list, we can change the color. We can also change the height range, and that's going to lower the overall height of the material this way. And we can also change the position of the height as well. So I'm just going to raise it up just so that this part wasn't getting so sucked in there. Just to get to just the right value. Maybe 0.5 was the best value. No, I'm gonna go a bit lower, a bit higher. I don't want to get stuck on this, but if we are using displacement, you know. Cool, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good, you know, particularly from the distance we're going to be looking at that at. Nice. You know, so I do have a couple other things we could combine with this if we wanted to. I have like old limestone, so that's always an option, which is kind of neat. It's more of a brick pattern, so I could maybe reduce this down. That's not really an old limestone type of thing. I could take it though and put it underneath my concrete, and that'll give it more of that kind of brick pattern, which is kind of neat. This actually works for the stands though. I'm actually going to use this. Instead of going more modern, I'll go all rustic, and so that actually looks pretty cool. Alright, so we got to mask this out. Now if you're going to have a bunch of materials, instead of masking them out one at a time, what we could do is we could create a folder for them. So let me just make sure. I think I put them in a folder, did I? No. So I'm just going to drag and drop them into this folder here. If it's going to let me. Maybe they are in the folder. No, I don't think so. Why is it not letting me drag and drop? There we go. It's just being finicky. There's you, and you just left drag. Alright, so I got my mask here. I want to take this mask and put it on the folder instead. So I'm going to create a black mask. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this mask. So by right-clicking on it, copy mask. And I'm going to paste it into this file right here. So paste into mask. There we go. And I can delete this mask now. So just remove mask. Cool. So now the mask is only on the top of the folder. So if I want to include these things, I'd have to go into the new mask, and same thing, right? So I could just go in and select these guys right here. If it lets me, there we go. It just takes a couple seconds to update. Cool. So you know, it is applying everything though, not just the one thing, but I'm gonna go with it. It actually unifies it. Pretty cool. All right, so that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that one. So on the wall, do I have height? I'm gonna turn height on for that one. Oh, that looks even better. Cool. All right, looks pretty good. And we could have like some spray paint on top of that or something like that. You know, well, you know, these dividers, maybe I want something a little bit different for the dividers. So maybe I'll take the dividers, which are these guys right here, out of the mask. So let me just go back into the mask, set it to 0, and I'm just going to take these guys out. And maybe I'll put on something else, like maybe more of a metal or something like that. Slightly different type of cement, maybe like a shiny cement, or maybe a bit of a color, something a bit more futuristic maybe. So I'm not going to put that under the folder. I'll just call this folder the main stadium. There we are. And then this guy here, let's go cast concrete. I'm going to give it a mask. So black mask, same thing, right? So I would just select this guy right here. And it's just going to take a second to update if it lets me. Yeah, it just takes a second to update. All right, so we got this. I got height turned on. We want to turn normal maps on, all that stuff. And yeah, I don't know if that's really working for me. Now it's pretty big. I could probably go in and scale this down, right? So I have something a little bit better. Maybe I could rotate it a bit, make it more a square. Oh, that's cool. We got these divots. So maybe I do want these divots here, like just align them to the column. That's neat. For a little bit. Which is, oh, you know what? This is the one up here. Oh, that looks cool. So I could, you know, if I wanted to take time, I could have a separate one for this section and a different one for that section over there. But maybe I'll just align it for this one right here. That's cool. Maybe just make it a bit smaller. That looks neat. Cool. And then, you know, if it's not enough or it's too much or we want to change the color, we could go down here. We can even use our eyedropper, which is a bit of an annoying eyedropper because you do have to hold it down. And we can go in and choose a color that exists in our wall here, just to match it. Now, it doesn't do a good job at matching unless you go over here and go to base color. And with base color on, it'll give you an exact match of what you're trying to match it to. So maybe like one of the darker colors here, perhaps. Whoops, but not yellow. What are you doing to me? All right, and let's go back to material. Yeah, it's not quite working. Let me just use the color picker. I'll go with that. And you know, if that's not quite working, the cool thing with these materials is I can just click on a different one, and I can quickly see the results of those. Ooh, that's kind of neat. It's very futuristic, but maybe it's not quite what we want, and we'd also have to tone down the height and stuff. I'll just go with what I had originally. Cool. We could also go in and increase our dirt quality, quantity, things like this. Looks like I missed a UV over there, but nobody's going to be the wiser because we don't see it. Cool. All right, I'm going to go with that. It's kind of a bit different, but that's cool. And you know what? Maybe I could take this cast concrete and use it on in here, but no, that's fine. All right, so let's go with that. So the next thing I want to do is go in and do the sand. So for this, I'm going to create a folder for the sand. So let me just go edit this folder. Let me just create a new folder. There we are. I think I created it. There we go. So you can see it's a little bit slow though. So, you know, I might want to go a bit faster, maybe lower down my overall size to about a 2K or even like a 1K. It's going to be so much faster to update and move things around, which is why it's been so pokey for me here. And I could always up the resolution, or when I export it, you know, I could export it at 4K or 8K and it'll just automatically update that resolution. So we don't necessarily have to work to the highest resolution while we're placing things. All right, so we got our new folder. We're going to call this new folder sand. And I'm going to create a mask for this one already because I know I'm going to need one. So create a black mask. We're on the right setting. And let me just make sure I'm selecting this guy. Okay, there we go. So that's done. Got the folder. So let's start adding in some sand here. So start with some desert sand. I'm just going to add it into that folder. Cool. All right, so that's looking kind of interesting. It's really big though, right? So it's not quite what we need. I'm gonna shrink this down a bit. Make sure I got height turned on. Looks kind of cool. All right, so that's kind of neat, but maybe it's not quite what we want. So I'm just gonna cycle through a couple different options here. So we got pack sand, and that's just gonna automatically, if I click on it, it should just update automatically. There we go. Just takes a couple seconds. It's kind of neat. I guess this could work, but again, we're going to probably want to go a little bit smaller for that. And remember, this is only a 1K resolution. You know, maybe I should go up to 2K at least just to get a bit more detail there. Right, and then 4K, you know, it'd be even higher, but as I mentioned, it's just going to be a little bit slower to position and do stuff with and whatnot. Let me just turn on height for that. Cool. Cool. I probably want to actually combine a bunch of these and then just kind of paint, blend them together. So let me see. Golf bunker sand, let's try you out. No, this desert sand dune, I think just the height is a bit too high. I'm just going to reduce the overall position maybe just a bit and just the height range. So that's not quite so bumpy. It's kind of neat. What else we got? We've got pack sand, rubble sand. Let's look at the rubble sand. And again, we're gonna have to just kind of scale this down a bit, turn on height, maybe reduce the overall height. All right, and we're starting to see a little bit of a cooler combination of stuff here. Let's see, marble intensity, maybe increase that. So what's the water level do? Let's crank that up. Does it add some water? It does. It actually has a little bit of water in there, which is kind of cool. Well, that really adds a little bit to it, huh? Problem with that is that, you know, you don't want it splashing and things. So let me get rid of the water level. couple little puddles here and there could add some neat interest though. Rain density, what does this do? That's very cool. Cool. You know what? That's kind of an interesting look to it. Cool. Now we are using just a flat plane. We'll get a little bit of this detailing though, which is cool once we bring it in. So some of this stuff, you know, we could go in and paint some masks for. So, you know, here there might be a little bit too much stuff underneath with these two guys, right? Because this is what it looks like without it, which actually looks pretty good, to be honest. Maybe we could just almost have just this one without the other ones. Although these are giant tire tracks, huh? That's okay. That's okay. You would never notice it. Maybe we do need the other ones. Just layered in there a bit. Cool. What I could do too is I could just create a blank layer and maybe go into my brushes over here. And let's see what kind of brushes. There's a concrete and there's a dirt and there's a sand, so maybe dirt. And I'm just going to start with only using height on this brush. So just height, no color. And I'm going to go a bit higher here. I'm going to start kind of going in around the edging just to randomize it a little bit. I can use the brackets to scale the brush up and down, or I can just use the control right mouse button. Let me go a little bit more max. There we go. That's what I want to see. So I'm just kind of going around and just making it look like dirt's kind of built up against some of the edging here. Just so that it's not quite so so regular looking. And this will add in some irregularity, make it look a bit more detailed just from doing this. All right, more on the edges though, not where the flat areas need to be, where he's going to be standing. All right, so that's kind of cool. Again, you can play with this stuff for hours. You can blend. So we're using just kind of solid blends, but you could also paint masks as well, right? So so that's always an option. So another thing I might want to do is just put on some decals onto the onto here, like some kind of paint or something like that, like a spray paint. So let me go into back into this folder, so the Stadium folder, and I'm going to add in just a regular layer. I'll call it decals. And do I want to do this, or do I want to I could do this. I'm just thinking I'm going to use height. I'm going to use a little bit of height for this one. Oh, you know what? This is under sand. Okay, let me undo that and make sure I'm going into the right thing here. I might have to move this around after. There we go, Stadium. So let me call this decals. And so, you know, for this I might want height, color. I might want it to be a little bit more metallic and roughness. And it's just a matter of playing around with these settings. So just a little bit raised from what we see there. And then the roughness and metallic. So it's paint, so it's going to be a bit shinier. So I'm just going to look at this shader ball to see the effect of what I'm doing there. Something like this. And I'm going to grab a alpha. So what alpha am I going to grab here? There's a whole bunch of things you can even create your own in Photoshop, bring it in, so you can do some kind of cool, maybe Japanese inspired lettering or something that you would see from that particular character's world. So I just want to do some lines or something. I can do the stereotypical type of thing. So let me see here. Just kind of think about your color. So there's a lot of blues, so maybe I want to go oranges or something that's a bit more contrasty. Scale this up. Somewhere around. Yes. Why are you not? Stupid brush. All right. I'm going to use a projection instead. So there is a projection. Here we are here. And then with the projection, what I can do is I can just change my, grab an alpha here. And, you know, nothing's really different in terms of what I'm doing. But if I go back to my brush, you can see that if I were to do the exact same stroke, it throws it on an angle, which is so frustrating. so what I might want to do is, again, with that projection, which, you know, I might want to change the color for that. Maybe I want a bit more of an orange or something like that. It'll automatically, two-tone, project it right straight on, which is cool. Well, that's neat, right? So it's a bit of a color offset. Just remember, it is going to go in the exact same spot around the entire stadium because it's the same texture. So whatever you do, you want to make sure it's kind of intentional. So maybe I want to do something a bit more vertical, perhaps, for this. Something a bit futuristic. So again, that's annoying, but once we go into projection, we're good. So again, let me go in and it's a different shader. Keep that in mind. So I'm going to want to go in and turn some of this on again. So a bit more height and just a little bit more. And let's see here. So this guy right here. And where do I want that? I'm going to rotate my brush. So we can rotate the brush. Let's see here. Nope. What's the hotkey for that? Sorry, there is a hotkey to rotate the brush, which it's not going to do. Anyhow, I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden, but you can rotate the brush here at the top, right through here. So, you know, if I want it to be 90 degrees, I could just rotate it right here. Let me pause. What's the hotkey for that? Right. So Control left mouse button, but then it's an up and down motion, so top down, and then I can rotate the brush this way. So let me just go in and rotate that, and I'm just going to add a decal over on the side here. I'm thinking kind of for Ragnarok a little bit, something a bit. That's cool. And then, you know, you could also go in and erase parts of that if you wanted to as well. Just by using the brush and the eraser, and maybe turn off your alpha, and I could just go in and or maybe grab a grunge or a different brush, and I can kind of erase parts of that, right, to got a bit of wear and tear and stuff. There's like some cracks or there's dirt, you can kind of break things down that way. Cool. All right, so I'm going to pause there, and then we'll talk about extraction, or I'll stop here, and then we'll talk about extraction and shader setup back in Maya. I just have to step away, unfortunately, for about an hour. All right.